We're not sure. So we'll see, and we'll stay locked in. We don't know, and we're not sure, which is why we ask questions about UFOs. UFOs are an alien, an extraterrestrial life, has been one of the greatest mysteries. You know, we kicked off this administration by seeing all these drones flying over New Jersey. Nobody ever gave us an explanation for that. Nobody ever gives us an explanation. Out of the blue, Barack Obama says that aliens are real, but they're not being held at Area 51. Well, that's weird. The next day, Donald Trump says he gave away classified information. He shouldn't have said that. Maybe I'll just declassify everything. Donald Trump then orders the declassification of all the UFO files. In between all of that, various members of Congress come on our show all the time to say that they've seen classified, top secret classified material that would change the world. Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, they are constantly on here saying that. The vice president told us just a few short days ago that the UFOs are actually demons. And then the head of NASA just confirmed to us that he believes alien life exists, and then they're probably going to find it when they get to Mars. That's what he told us yesterday, right? He told us that on Tuesday. So who's telling the truth here? I mean, goodness, Matt Gaetz just told us that there's alien breeding programs throughout the country and that the U.S. government has non-human biologics. I don't know who to believe. I'm not calling anyone a liar. I'm just saying that this all seems to be happening around like some central plan, maybe. Let's bring on an expert to actually talk about it. Dr. Stephen Greer. I just want you guys to understand, he is like the world's foremost authority on UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligence, and technologies, and initiating peaceful contact with interstellar civilizations. He is for 35 years, nearly 4 decades, Dr. Greer has provided briefings to senior government officials across the globe and done numerous media interviews. He's produced 6 feature film and documentaries on this subject. If you are interested in this subject, if you're just curious in this subject, or if you just like to bring all the threads together, you can't get better than Dr. Stephen Greer, who joins us live right now. Doctor, it's an honor to have you on. I wanted to give a proper introduction. It's an honor to speak with you. I think I missed that that Steven Spielberg just happened to be producing one of his first movies in a long time called Disclosure Day, and that's out in a couple months. So
yes, I guess I should have trademarked that when I started the disclosure movement in the 1990s. But there you go. I mean, it's I caught on. I mean, it is time for all this information to come out. And you know, my uncle worked on the lunar landing project with the lunar module, and I was a little kid when we put the first man on the moon. And I learned some things when I was quite young, and saw some things when I was quite young. It was quite clear that we weren't alone in the universe, and that it was the biggest cover-up of what people call the deep state in history. And it's a dangerous secrecy being played. So we are at the breakout point of this coming to the public. The problem is the cacophony of different voices confusing the issue. And one of my biggest concerns is why, with great respect for the vice president, what was said on your show on Friday last week, because people need to understand that advanced technologies, which are interstellar, are going to look like magic or supernatural. It is something they're not. They're extraordinary, but they're not supernatural. So let's take a little exercise here, Benny, for just a minute. Let's go down the road. Here is Thomas Jefferson's house where I live. Yeah, if you were to show him your iPhone or this transmission, you would be a sorcerer. You'd probably be considered something from another dimension. You would be considered a ghost. You probably burned at the stake in Salem, Massachusetts for having an iPhone, because it would be considered magic. So every technology of an extremely advanced civilization looks like magic to a lesser one. It is not that it's supernatural or demonic. And actually, when I was at the Vatican with Pope John Paul, senior theologian, Monsignor Balducci, we brought this issue up because it was already out in the atmosphere, let's say. And he said, and he was a demonologist, and Monsignor Balducci said, no, neither angels nor demons require flying saucers. And he started laughing. And he was making the point that the technology and science behind this is really what confuses people, because it's so exotic. And this is where you have to get into about 80 years of lost physics and lost technology, that when people see these things, they're completely flummoxed. And first of all, 80% or more of all the UFOs seen are man-made anti-gravity craft. And my uncle's company have them, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Skunk Works, Raytheon. We know who's building them. We know where the facilities are, and this has been handed off to the president and to law enforcement because it's a criminal operation. One thing that we're getting very serious about this is that their senior law enforcement is aware in a task force, and I won't say who, that these have been illegal and criminal operations involving murder, abductions, embezzlement of trillions of dollars of funds over the decades, and insubordination and treason. So it is a very serious issue. I think the president is waking up to it slowly because we have people who have been providing that information. This briefing document, which is a redacted version of what he has, you can all get a copy of on our website. But I would like to offer to you the unredacted version of it that's very sensitive for you to convey over to your friend, Mr. Vance. But I think that because he needs to get read in on this properly before speaking about it too much. It's a very serious issue. And I will tell you, if this is disclosed improperly, it'll be 1,000 times worse than COVID. And I think that when you're talking about the fact we are being visited by advanced civilizations, they are not hostile. If they were hostile, we'd be gone. But we have approached them very hostilely. We have literally downed at least 1,000 or more of their spacecraft using illegal electromagnetic pulse weapons. And I know where they're being used and how they're being used. And we have captured those bodies, some living, some dead. And Mr. Gates was correct in saying that there are some gruesome programs being run by military where they've been trying to combine DNA of these creatures with humans, and they come out with these monstrous looking things that are used to abduct people. So everyone's here of alien abductions. It's not the extraterrestrials doing it. It's a covert human program. And we know this and we can prove it. So this is a huge story. It's the biggest scandal in the history of the United States in its founding. And I think for our 250th anniversary, we should be liberated from the secrecy, and these extraordinary technologies that could benefit all of humanity need to begin to be looked at, to be brought out. So that's what we're doing with the Disclosure Project.
Doctor, there's so many follow-ups there. I don't even know where to begin. Let's let's start at the beginning. Sure. You began your comments by saying that you saw things as a child with your family who was working on the lunar programs and working on those programs were classified. So assuredly, your family had classified access to some top secret programs. What is it?
It was just my uncle working on the lunar module. Yeah.
What is it that you saw that started this process for you?
Well, it was a coincidence, if you believe in coincidences, which I actually don't, that I saw a UFO when I was 8 or 9 in the sky near our home in North Carolina. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, but he was working on the lunar module in Bethpage, New York. That's where Grumman was, that built the lunar module, landed on the moon first time. So, but I also heard things because it's aerospace and it's the aerospace industry. And when I became a young I'm a trauma doctor, emergency and trauma. I began a process of pulling together a lot of whistleblowers. And this was in the early 90s. We now have over 750 whistleblowers that I have debriefed who have been in top secret positions, CIA, Department of Defense, aerospace, other corporations. And so we have a huge archive on this, and we're distilling that into the briefing materials for members of Congress and the White House. But I think that we're completely a private, non-governmental entity, and we're self-funded by contributions. But our purpose is to fix a quiet coup d'etat that happened around the time I was born, I was born in 55. So in the late 1950s, Eisenhower lost control of these UFO-related programs because he wanted to make peaceful contact with these civilizations, but also begin to bring out the energy technologies that would terminate oil. Our whole mess in the Middle East is because we're still dependent on oil, but we haven't needed it since I was born. And I think that this is an enormous macroeconomic and technology story, much more than it is about aliens. Those civilizations from other star systems are simply concerned about our proclivity to destroy the planet, right? And to fight each other. And as we started going out into space, a big red flag went up, and you know, where they said, well, we better watch what's going on here. But they're by no means hostile to us. I think it's the other way around. I think they're more concerned about our hostility. But see, this coup d'etat that happened under Eisenhower never got fixed. President Kennedy tried to, and I can assure you that is why he got killed.
Wow. Okay.
Same thing with Marilyn Monroe. I have a document that's pretty much her death warrant from the CIA, dated a couple of days before they found her dead, because she was going to hold a press conference to tell the whole world what Jack Kennedy had told her about the objects from outer space that were recovered in the 40s. A clear reference to a couple of the accidents or downing of UFOs back in the mid and late 40s. And it's an official CIA document. Now, it's not been declassified. I released it because my team determined, speaking of Department of Justice, that these programs are treasonous and illegal. And because they're illegal, we have every right to release that information. You cannot use the National Security Act to keep something secret if the program is itself treasonous.
So your contention is that advanced civilizations have visited this Earth and this country using technologies that would seem like magic, that would seem out of our
right.
out of anything that we could possibly imagine, and that the U.S. government has shot them down.
Well, compartmented operations working under U.S. top secret cover, but illegally have done so. See, and this is where you get into a very quick discussion of how I reached this conclusion. In 1993, I'm working as an emergency doctor in North Carolina. I was flown up to brief the director of the CIA for President Clinton, because they had began to look into this and they were blocked, and they knew they were being blocked. And they knew that there had been sort of a coup d'etat that separated the oversight of the Congress and the president and White House over these super secret projects. And when I first was invited to the meeting, I thought that was ridiculous. I didn't believe the FedEx I got said they cannot get information on this and they're being blocked from getting it. And I said, well, the president has an all access pass. And my contact said, oh, no, he doesn't. And so that's when I realized we were in a huge amount of trouble here in terms of our governance and what people call the deep state. This is the crown jewel of deep state activity, is the UFO issue. There's no question about it. Why? Because of the technology. I mean, the technologies that we have studied and reverse engineered and put into deployment for surveillance, for aircraft that fly at 100,000 miles per hour and make a right-hand turn without decelerating. Those are ours. If you saw on CNN and Fox News, that Tic Tac that everyone saw, that's a Lockheed Skunk Works device. It was not alien. And yet it completely confused our military command because those guys had not been read into those programs. So the left hand doesn't even know the right hand is doing, and it is dangerous. The other problem is that those technologies have been used in false flag operations to sort of deceive political leaders, such as Mr. Vance and the president, but also the people in Congress. For example, what Mr. Gates said and what Mr. Burchett recently said on a news show is information I received in the 1990s about these weird-looking creatures that are not extraterrestrials, but they're man-made monsters, like a Frankenstein monster, and this sounds like science fiction, but it isn't, that have been used to have on board man-made UFOs. We mastered gravity control in 1954, the year before I was born. And so the problem becomes, if you have that kind of technology and you're a psychopath or a sociopath that view yourself above the law and the Constitution, you can run amok and do it. A scientist I know, Dr. Jacques Vallée, has a CIA document describing in 1985 using man-made UFOs, reverse engineered from real ET ones, to abduct, quote, peasants, is what it says, in Brazil and Argentina in 1985 for its psychological warfare value. So you see, I'm afraid Mr. Vance was the victim of a psyop. And this is one of the big psyops or psychological warfare operations, is to convince people that, well, they don't exist at all. That was it for decades. Now they do exist, but they're a threat to us, which they're not. And if that isn't good enough, they're not aliens at all, but they're demons working from the right hand of Satan, which is not true either. So they're trying to push forward agendas to sort of deceive our leaders and the public, and they keep changing what the deception is. But the main narrative is they will tell you anything but the truth. So what we have to do is get to the bottom of the truth, and the best way to do it is through these hundreds of whistleblowers who work in those projects. Now, so far, Congress has not called any of them to testify. The ones they've had are secondhand or minor whistleblowers. We have people I'm working with who are operational at black sites, covert sites, where they are doing these activities, where they are doing these human experiments, where they are downing these ET craft. I know them personally. I've been in their classified choppers. I was almost killed after I got back from one of those trips in a mysterious accident. I had to have 4 surgeries. I was critically injured. But what I tell people is that this is a huge story, and it's not little green and gray men. It's really about a covert program that got out of control in the late 50s and is still out of control and is the greatest threat to national security. The secrecy around this subject far exceeds the dangers of China, Iran, and Russia, because it's the enemy within. It's covert programs in our country that have these technologies, and they have used them criminally for decades. Now, the good news is, because of actions, not so much in Congress or the White House yet, but by certain law enforcement entities that are confidential, that organization is on the run, and they know that we know who they are. And I'm not going to sit and list a bunch of names right here, right now, but we do need at some point to have an attorney general who will begin to make quite clear people should be prosecuted up to and including treason for what they've been doing and are doing. And I think that this is a very serious matter, because when you have, like when I briefed the CI director for Clinton and later the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, they honestly had never been read into this. And I was the first person to do it. I was taking my time away from my medical practice and my 4 little daughters. And I'm nobody. I have no clearance. I don't want a clearance. I don't need it. Same thing when I was at the Senate Intelligence Committee, SCIF, to get information for Mr. Rubio and Warner, who were chair and co-chair of Senate Intelligence. They didn't have any information. Now they do. But it's because we have stitched together, the information from nearly 1,000 whistleblowers. And that's what we're providing as a briefing. I would offer that to you and to Mr. Vance. It looks like he's quite interested in the matter.
It does. And I think that his interest is earnest and in good faith.
Yes, I agree.
100%. Okay, so to reiterate, just so that I'm tracking with you, right? Because I'm simply being educated on all of this, right? Sort of as we go, and everybody can, sort of see the bricks that are being. At least we're asking the question. So, okay, so there is a splinter group. Your contention is that there is a splinter group that is funded by the federal government. So everyone has to have funding, right? That has some type of that has operational control over alien technologies and operates outside of constitutional bounds altogether in order to keep those technologies and perhaps even use them in criminal ways. And that the vast majority of the federal government, if anyone in the federal government's even read in on this, and that we have reverse engineered alien technologies, and we're just starting to scratch the surface right now.
Right. And here's the issue, is that they're not just getting funding from the black budget of the United States. For example, they may say a B-2 stealth bomber, which my uncle's company, Northrop Grumman, builds. In reality, they'll say it's $2 billion a copy. It's probably 150 million. The rest goes through the back door, making the triangular UFOs people see. That's a Northrop Grumman platform. There's a Raytheon one that's similar. Now, some of the other shaped airfoils that are anti-gravity are Lockheed Skunk Works. and we know where these are being built and how they're being built. So I think that now that's the biggest part of the secrecy. Now, the actual extraterrestrial vehicles are even more exotic, but we're reaching almost parity. In fact, the men that I've worked with who are on the retrieval teams, after they knock down an extraterrestrial vehicle using an electromagnetic pulse weapon at these black sites out in the desert, have told me that the ones we have become so good that they're almost indistinguishable. You have to really be an expert to know the difference. The danger of that is that those man-made ones have been used in false flag operations to make made to look alien. And so let's say you're the commander-in-chief Atlantic Command of the submarine fleet in Norfolk. And this is the case I was involved with. And there was a UFO that comes in and you scramble jets and fire upon it. Well, he thought it could have been from the Soviet Union. This is in 1980. It turns out it was not one of the Soviet Unions, but we almost went to World War III over it. And this admiral, four-star commander-in-chief, Atlantic Command, was not read in. And now that's dangerous because just in terms of military chain of command, you have people, for example, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, whom I briefed. He had no information on this subject, even though I had whistleblowers in the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, who were working on these illegal black projects. So the thing that it's a bigger mess than the DOJ that your previous guest was talking about by far, and it's a dangerous one.
So I'd like to just simply show some of the evidence that has been presented from our U.S. military, because what you're saying here is very easy to discount, Doctor. It's people can just say you're insane, right? You're crazy.
Well,
you have no proof. But this is
we
something
we do have the proof,
and I'd like to get there. This is something that was played, of course, in Congress. This is the footage that we find that we are obsessed with. I know there's plenty that we could obsess over, but why not just jump on this one? This is an object that's hit by an M9 Reaper drone with a Hellfire missile, the most sophisticated weapons we have that we know of right now. The object clearly breaks. First off, the object's traveling with insane speed over the ocean. It breaks into multiple parts, almost like it's organic in nature, and then it reforms. Those parts then become independent, and then they coagulate once more. And this is American military footage,
right?
That is being played. And as far as I know, it has not been manipulated whatsoever. It's played at a congressional hearing. Anna Paulina Luna's on. We trust her, along with the other members of the committee. What's going on here? What is this?
Well, that is actually both items in this video are man-made. The one that people think is a UAP, well, it's a UAP to people who don't know what it is. It's one of ours, but it's a classified, and so it was a friendly fire incident. And a lot of people don't realize that we have technologies covertly that simulate or are very close to what extraterrestrial technologies are. And this gets into a big problem because you have a situation like I was talking about earlier, where you can the confusion and the fog of an evolving event like this, you can make serious mistakes. And this is why there's almost like two parallel governments going on here. There's a very secret operation that goes above the normal U.S. Chain of command. And the people who are read into that are people part of this, I hate to say, criminal conspiracy until recently. And then you have the part that's the legal U.S. government. But that Congressman Burleson, who I know and have been providing a lot of information to, as well as Luna and Burchett and others, I knew about this before it was shown, and I'd seen it before it was shown. And I immediately said, well, this is not an extraterrestrial or an alien device. That both of these, of course, the Hellfire missile, but Predator, as well as the object, is man-made. The Tic Tac that everyone heard about that got released, that was all in the news. As I mentioned, we have multiple military. We're going to do a National Press Club event. You're invited to come on May 28th, and we're going to have a Green Beret there. I'm sorry, on May 8th, and in Washington. It's the 25th anniversary of our first one that launched the whole disclosure movement in 2001. But that event, we're going to have a Green Beret there that's going to disclose the Tic Tac, that UFO that started a lot of mainstream media looking into this. And he saw it while he was on a special operation in the Middle East. We have other witnesses to it. And so this kind of upsets people because everyone's thinking all these things that they're looking at are alien. And in reality, a lot of them are illegal and covert human military and aerospace programs. The center of gravity, though, isn't in the government, it's corporate. And this is the other thing people don't understand. In government who are complicit, but it's largely corporate. And this gets into a big problem with some of our largest defense contractors who have operations that include wet works, where people who have begun to leak things are threatened or have been assassinated. So this is being looked at criminally right now because there have been people murdered for blowing the whistle on some of these programs.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about some of these, people have been on to talk about these disappearances. Tim Burchett was on last week talking about these disappearances. So was Matt, saying that this certainly looks like a criminal conspiracy to silence people. I want to talk about something that was said very publicly that seems to align with exactly what you're saying here. And just to be clear, I don't know what's real. I have no idea. We just have like a earnest and good faith effort to simply ask the right questions and not be scared of asking questions. No one should be scared of asking questions about this. But we had a big question about Dr. Krastios's first address here on April 14th, 2025 to the nation. And he gave this big address and he said something that seems to align almost exactly with what you are saying here about anti-gravity devices or alien technology. He says, our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. Huh? What? Huh? Well, can you demonstrate that for us exactly? They leave distance annihilated. Oh, so there's no such thing as distance anymore. So that means there's no such thing as like matter and time anymore, and they cause things to grow and improve productivity. Well, what does he mean by this? In the very same day, President Trump says we have weapons that nobody's even heard of, that nobody even knows what they are, is what President Trump says. And now you're on my program saying that we've just reverse engineered alien technology. Our defense contractors have reverse engineered alien technology, and that they're doing test flights across the country. They're actually using it. Our military is firing on it. Is this what they're talking about?
Yes, but unfortunately, it's more than test flights. They're used in operations. For example, there's a section of this covert cabal, let's call it, that are using these devices in human trafficking and child trafficking and human experimentation. And these are the man-made UFOs. So this is another big area of investigation right now. It's going on quietly, but it's important that people understand that not everything that goes bump in the night is ET or an alien. A lot of it that people are concerned about and that would lead them to think that the aliens are a threat are actually man-made objects and man-made creatures. It does begin to sound like science fiction, but again, imagine what you have. If you have had 80 years, and the most brilliant scientists I have ever met on Earth, working in black projects, studying technologies that are thousands of years more advanced than a B-2 stealth bomber, what you're going to come up with. The problem is those same technologies cure cancer, fix the environment, and eliminate the need for costly energy for America and the world. That same technology can be misused in the wrong hands. And this is why it is of the utmost national security importance. Then we have made this point to everyone that I have met with, from President Clinton, CI director, to now. Unfortunately, no one's ever wanted to do anything about it till recently. And luckily, we do have good people like Mr. Burleson and Burchett in Congress. And also, I know there's very serious investigations going on in law enforcement and the White House on this now, and they're trying to do the right thing. My concern, as someone who's dealt with this for too long, frankly, in my own private life, it's been very disruptive. 35 years of this is that if it begins to come out as demons and goblins, or if it comes out as a threat, it's better that it be kept secret. I mean, the consequences to the human species would be devastating if it came out improperly. And so words matter and concepts matter. Now, there's one other thing I haven't talked about, And that is the third category of phenomenon that people are seeing is neither man-made nor extraterrestrial. It's from another dimension. And the things from another dimension, meaning that is their origin, extraterrestrial vehicles to go across the vastness of space transfer through dimensions. We don't have time to get into the physics of it, but think of quantum entanglement, where every point in space and time is instantly related. But when you go, quote, beyond the speed of light, because you're basically teleporting in a quantum entangled propulsion system, you are transecting another dimension. And that is why people could confuse it with something like a demon or a ghost, because there is an overlap of phenomenon, but only superficially. It's actually scientific, because that's what quantum entanglement is. But on a macro scale, you're moving an entire spacecraft or a huge object across the vastness of space. And we understand this. Now, the bigger question is, are there things that are popping in from another dimension? You know, people talk about Bigfoot or ghosts or poltergeists. Yes, but that shouldn't be confused with extraterrestrial biological entities with spacecraft and travel systems or communication systems, nor should the man-made ones be confused with the extraterrestrial ones. But right now, it's almost like a doctor. I use this medical analogy that if someone came to me with chest pain and I'm a lousy doctor, I'm going to say it's a heart attack. Well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a dissecting thoracic aneurysm. Maybe it's a pulmonary embolus. Maybe it's a whole bunch of things, right? So a bad diagnostician would just jump to conclusions. And I'm afraid that's what the public is beginning to do. And we have to be careful that our leaders not jump to false conclusions, because the consequences are serious.
Okay, so could you explain to me, if you had a lock and a key and you were able to actually open up these black boxes and show the American public what these technologies are?
Yes.
What would we find out? What would we see? What does anti-gravity look like? What are some of the systems, weapons, travel, or otherwise that have been created in these skunk work programs? What have you heard? What are they building? What have they built?
Well, I know what we've seen, and I know what the people on my team who work on them have seen and are working on them. Because my team, I have a very deep bench of whistleblowers. And we're not talking about people who just incidentally saw something, like people who are operational at these black sites. And those folks have shared a great deal with us. So, you know, before he died, Ben Rich, who was president of the Lockheed Skunk Works, which is their super secret engineering division, said to a friend of mine, a very well-known aerospace historian named James Goodall, he said, look, anything you have seen on Star Trek or can imagine, we have already in the Lockheed Skunk Works. It's not at Area 51. It's an old facility, and it's out in the desert. And I've been to that facility. So you have objects that are man-made, that are disc, spherical, triangular, and other shapes that can go from hover to 300,000 miles per hour instantly. And that's man-made. And we have multiple at the National Press Club on May 8th in Washington, D.C. We're going to have people who have been there when those have been operational who will be testifying to it. So you're welcome to come, and you can broadcast from there if you'd like. But I think that those technologies are quite advanced. Now, the extraterrestrial ones, those get into a whole new category where they could be visible in front of you and shift resonantly and be invisible and look like they're going back and forth from being solid to not solid. And this has been studied. Some people call it a cloaking mechanism. It's not correct. It's a resonant frequency where the matter of the whole craft can shift out of this dimension, so it disappears in thin air. And we know that Colonel Corso described that when he encountered one at White Sands in 1956. But we have teams that we deploy out, and we've observed the same phenomenon. So the extraterrestrial vehicles can range from a very small device, a foot around, like a sphere, up to objects that have been measured in space, I'm aware, out in our solar system, of several hundred miles across, that Lockheed official told me about out by the Saturn back in the 90s. when we were doing the Cassini probe, or early 2000s. And so they're very large to very small, and they're of all shapes. We also know one of our whistleblowers, who unfortunately has passed away, he was on a retrieval team, and when he was on it, they had cataloged 69 different species of ETs that all look different from different planetary systems. And that was as of the late 60s. Sergeant Stone, and he was on one of those retrieval teams. We have another man who has just come forward, but he was threatened. His whole family was threatened, and that's why he didn't go to Arrow or provide information to Congress directly yet. We're actually calling for law enforcement and the Congress to start issuing subpoenas, because we have some wonderful people who need a subpoena to be required to speak, and they will under oath. But I think that this man encountered one that was about 300 feet across, almost looked like a big clamshell, and it had been hit by a EMP weapon and kind of didn't crash, but floated to the ground. But above it was a man-made triangular Northrop Grumman UFO that's ours, that was keeping it in check. And it's quite an extraordinary story. And we have so many of these whistleblowers who have been operational, and we're trying to get, now one group of them have terabytes of video and images of both the biologics, they're called the bodies, as well as the craft. And before the inauguration, they were going to come forward, but they were convinced not to. And we do know that in a skiff, where at one of the aerospace giants, there was open discussion about using wet works or targeted assassinations against those guys. So we're urgently trying to get them protected, and they have been handed over. And I have introduced some of them to members of Congress, a few select, and I've introduced them to law enforcement for their protection. But again, I can't provide that. They need federal marshal and they need witness protection in many cases to be able to do this safely, so they and their families are protected. So, I mean, this is a very serious business that we're doing, and it's disturbing. But the good news, here's some very good news for the public. Once this gets sorted out and the White House and the Congress can figure out a path to bring this information out properly, if it comes out properly, the golden age that the president speaks about will be completely possible. Within a generation, there'd be no poverty, no pollution, and, quote, free energy for every person on the earth at no cost, zero cost. That's what we're talking about. Because the energy systems that run these devices, there's no rockets, there's no fuel, there's no jet. It's a type of physics that deals with 0-point energy or the quantum vacuum. And this is where it's estimated that in a coffee mug, within that space of a coffee mug, there's enough latent energy to boil off all the oceans of the world. It's called the 0-point energy field. Tesla called it the infinite energy field. I don't know that it's infinite, but it's vast. And so that technology, which is how you run these craft, they're not running with a nuclear device on them or jet fuel. And we can prove that. You hear no sound. You hear no rockets. Well, it's electromagnetic propulsion, anti-gravity, but the energy system is also a very advanced magnetic field energy generation that doesn't require a fuel source. And so you're looking at a total revolution industrially and how the world lives. And I have 11 grandchildren. The world they'll be living in will be so different from this world we're in now that it will barely resemble it, which is wonderful. Now, here's a caveat. We've recommended all the way back to the Clinton administration that the lifter, the anti-gravity propulsion systems, not be disclosed or released until the world is more stable, because those can be a missile delivery system. But the basic energy generation that would run your car or run your house or your factory, those need to come out immediately. And so that's something that we're recommending, that there be a technology transfer out of these black projects, but it be phased, and there are multiple phases. The other part of it is that there are medical, I'm speaking here as a doctor, and some things I've seen in a covert underground facility that would be extraordinary for medicine. in terms of treatment that are related to the same area of physics, and those would revolutionize medicine. Those need to come out. So there's a constellation of technologies that need to begin to come out. But some of the more advanced ones that deal with propulsion, you really don't want a terrorist in Mogadishu to have an object that can deliver a dirty bomb over Washington, D.C. in 2 or 3 minutes, right? And this is what you're talking about. You're not talking about a missile or Artemis going to the moon with a rocket. It's a Roman candle from the 40s, right? That's all these rockets are. I mean, they're 1940s technology with fancier computers. But these technologies that deal with propulsion, we're going to have a global collective security agreement that those can only be used for peaceful purposes. But we've never achieved that. We've never disarmed our nuclear. We have an armed camp on this planet. Look at what's going on now in the Middle East, Ukraine, elsewhere. So the world is not quite stable enough, in my opinion, to release publicly. We can acknowledge we have them. Just like everyone knows we have a hydrogen bomb, you can't go to the hardware store and buy one. You can't let those proliferate until we become more stable. But the energy generation systems should have come out 100 years ago.
So, Doctor, we're very short on time here. I have so many different follow-up questions. I guess the one that comes most prescient to mind, because I feel like we've covered some good territory here, is the non-human biologics. Mm-hmm. You say there's various different species of ETs that we have. And have you ever seen one? Like, what do they look like? Do people have photos? Do you know?
Do.
Like, do you have photos of this? Like,
we have a few photos from our expeditions where we go out and attempt to make direct contact with them, and we have succeeded in doing so. People can look at the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and you'll be astonished. And we have a new one out called CE5, the New Frontier of Contact, where we have some amazing evidence. But I do have some photos of I have one being dissected on a slab that was given to me from a facility. It was actually in a woman's grandmother's book that she had taken from a secret facility where Roswell is, where the Roswell event happened. And I have that photograph. We have other video and photograph of these, but the ones that are really good are being held by these covert whistleblowers who want to bring them forward, but they want to do it safely.
That's my problem, Doctor, is like you have people on like Tim Burchett, we love him, Anna Polina Luna, and they kind of like just wink and nod about the stuff that they see in a skiff. They wink and nod about this stuff, but nothing ever comes out. Nobody ever sees anything. The footage that you get is grainy. The footage that you get is from from a drone, right? And it's black and white, and you can't really tell what the hell's going on.
Well, go to our archive. You'll see much better than that. It's called DPIarchive.com.
Okay.
It's the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, and you'll see the photo. We have crystal clear ones, videos, images. They're in there because people aren't looking. Now, here's what I think. Secretary Hegseth is supposed to release all that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we need to be sure that he has access to the right people. I will tell you that through the chain of command in the Pentagon, he is unlikely to he'll probably get more fiction than fact. And this is why what we're trying to do with the Disclosure Project and our whistleblower group is to provide that information to the policymakers and the ones who are constitutionally approved in Congress and also the executive branch to get this information. But within the system, my concern is I know already they're being provided a lot of false information where they will show a case that says, oh, this is an alien did this and someone had brain trauma. Well, it wasn't. It was actually one of our own covert programs, and they're scapegoating the aliens on it. And if you're new to the subject, you're not going to know the difference. So they need subject experts in there. I mean, I think that the White House and the Congress need subject experts, our team, but also our whistleblowers. They need to pull those folks in and get them debriefed and have this material turned over from folks who are, instead of a secondhand or fourth-hand source, you need to bring those people directly in and debrief them and get the evidence from them. And I think that's what Mr. Hegseth is going to have to do pretty soon.
We appreciate your time, Doctor. We love having just a good faith discussion and to probe the mysteries of the universe,
Right.
and to talk with people who, you've spent 35 years on this subject. And
Yeah.
I think it's critical to sort of like try and bring the threads together. Ultimately, what we want is a peaceful, clean, functional nation that is a good future for our kids. You have 4 daughters. Right. Is that what every parent wants? And I guess I have no idea what UFOs. I guess I have no idea, right? Like how this all shakes out. There is something clearly out there.
Right.
And I suppose, I'm a Christian. God is the creator, right? And the creator can create. And so I guess I don't see this as a misalignment whatsoever with my belief system.
I was talking to Charlie Kirk about that. I was on his podcast not long before he was shot, and about at the Vatican. I remember they were telling me, and they came out with a statement that yes, there's life all throughout the universe, but they're all children of God, just as we are. And I think that perceive it. And although they may look different and be different sizes and different cultures and different everything, they certainly God, and they are created as part of the natural universe. This is why, Mr. Vance needs to understand they're not demons. That's something else. That's from other lower dimensions. But they're people. I call them people. They just look very different. And I believe there are probably hundreds to thousands of civilizations out there. How many we've had contact with, I don't know. But I do know that there are some, and they're very much concerned about us. But we become more civilized, let's say, and peaceful, and old in age, they're going to reach out directly. In the future, we'll have direct, open contact. That's what I see happening. But we have some work to do, and as a civilization on Earth, and we need to fix this illegal secrecy dysfunction that has distorted the issue for 80 years.
Yeah, and you stop experts.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I have no plans to disappear.
Do you know any of these guys? We've heard that there have been quite a few disappearances.
Yeah, I know of them. I think the one that is in some question is the one that you're showing there, General McCaslin, because that guy was very involved, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, in these covert and very dark programs. We know this, and we don't know if he disappeared himself, perhaps. Now, remember what I shared a little bit of a bomb here. There is law enforcement closing in on some of the criminal operations. So some of these, in his case, we don't know if he was made to disappear or if he disappeared himself. This is an open question. I don't have the answer. We have a team of people investigating it, though, who are skilled in military matters that have left the military and are working with us. Dr.
Stephen Greer, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you'll be back on the program.
I'd love to.
Enjoyable to speak with you. Everybody follow Dr. Stephen. You can follow him here if you want more updates. He has nearly 300,000 followers here on X. Just one of the premier experts on this issue. Has devoted the vast majority of his life, frankly, to studying this, and we appreciate it took me a while to process this, quite frankly.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. It's a bit drinking from a fire. No, I was just in St. Petersburg, Tampa last weekend. I wish I'd gotten to see you. But when I get down there, maybe we can get together sometime. That
would be very nice. Yes, that's right. I'd love to do it in person. Yeah. God bless you. Thank you very much, and have a glorious weekend. Good luck on the disclosure day. Don't worry, you and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. May 8th. Hope you can be at the National Press Club May 8th.
We would love that. That'd be fun. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
It will be fun. Yeah, you should come up.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
All
right.